All right, good morning, everybody. Whoa. Check, check. All right, that's better. Good morning. Welcome. Thank you for spending your Saturday, or at least part of your Saturday, with us. I really appreciate it. My name is Luke Murray. I'm the Director of Administrative Services for the town of South Kingstown. I also serve as the School Building Committee Chairperson, which I'm very honored to be. We have a great group. Some of them are here. Some of them are not, unfortunately. They had other obligations, and in fairness, they've been meeting a lot on the project. We've been meeting for over 6 months, actually almost near to 8 months now. We've been pulling a lot of meetings to kind of get things together to this point. Today is really about you. And so I really want you to participate. We have Phil and Catherine here from Studio Jade. They'll be facilitating the sessions today. It will be an interactive session. I'm going to give you a brief overview of what's been done to this point by the committee and kind of where we're at. For the benefit of those who maybe not have really tuned in until recently in the process. As you may know, there's been a lot of developments as of late because we now have a commitment from the council to back a $125 million bond, specifically geared towards the high school property and redevelopment, as well as an athletic facility. So the way that breaks down is 119 million estimated at this point for a new high school facility and $6 million for a new track and field facility. I can certainly answer questions, and that'll be my role today. I'll be kind of roving around to the groups. If you have questions on the project or what's been done to this point, I can certainly educate you on whatever needs to be done. This process is about good information. And I think the school building committee, which is appointed by council and overseen also by the school committee, has done a good job to this point of vetting through a variety of options to get to this point. So those who don't know, we've always been primarily focused on the high school project, but we have looked at others. And it is still on our radar to look at other projects. The reason we're doing this now is there is additional reimbursements through the state of Rhode Island that effectively end the end of this year if we do not start the process of construction. And I say process of construction because they'll say it's shovels in the ground. What it effectively means is that we need to be working with an architect designing a final project by December 31st. And that would increase our reimbursement from a base of 35%, which it exists now under what they call housing aid, to approximately 52.5%. What does that mean? That means a lot less burden on the local taxpayers for a project of this size. And you can imagine what just 1% would do when you're talking millions of dollars. So we want to take advantage of those bonuses. As many of you know, we've gone through this process before. I think this prime, it's very different in that we're solely focused on a new high school. It is a very defined project. I think it's simple to explain, and I think you'll kind of have a simple way to interact today with Phil and his team, and he'll kind of go through some of the options to do that. We, as a building committee, have looked at multiple sites. We looked at the YMCA, we've looked at Broad Rock, seeing if we could do a campus. We looked at Curtis Corner for a building. Ultimately, we decided to keep the building here. The reason being is that through our iterative process, Curtis Corner, you'll see today after we did the wetlands flagging, really shrinks as a campus. And it makes it very difficult to get the whole agenda on that site. From a YMCA standpoint, we didn't own the property. We looked at the back of their property, seeing if we could obtain that, the hurdles and the time frame, and it just didn't work. So we're here, we're back here. The current plan for the facility, after looking at all of our options, is one consideration that came up in keeping it here is what do we do with the student body during the 3-year time frame that a new facility would be constructed? So the initial thought was that this building would have to come down immediately to start preparing the pad and get it built. That obviously extends the time frame because you have to wait for the demolition to complete. But you also have to move that student body somewhere else. And the most logical point is CCMS. But that facility, we're moving out of it for part of a reason. One is student population, but two, it needs upgrades. And it also is insufficient in layout. I'll just put it that way. Also, many parents were concerned. High school is a very important time. We understand that. And during that time, they would be displaced out of the school in a kind of a makeshift, which was less than ideal. So what we did was we revisited the field next door, which does have a conservation restriction on it, to see what options there would be. And after doing some additional due diligence, we found that we could in fact do a land transfer to make that option work. So the way that would work is that we would apply to transfer the restriction over to a future field that would be in this location where the building currently sits. And we would construct a new facility on the field here. That would allow us to build in place while the student body stayed right in this building. Nothing really changes. When that building is completed, we'd move the student body over, we'd demolish this building, and a field would be put in, and a new restriction would go on to that field. That is the only way it could be done, because the federal government does not allow you to just purchase another property and move the recreation facility there. It has to be a land transfer. It has to be equivalent recreational value. We feel that that application would be strong. I've already talked to the National Park Service and DEM, and that it could be done. So right now, that is our highest and best option. At some point, the committee understands that we have to call this good. We have to start moving to the next phase, schematic design. We're moving to what's called a stage 2 report submission in June. What does that stage 2 do? That qualifies us for the potential reimbursements. So once we submit to RIDE and we say, this is the project, this is the location, this is generally the scope, they will review the project, come back to us in 8 to 12 weeks and say, yes, you are approved at a certain amount. It's a one-page letter. It's kind of anticlimactic in the end. But you get a letter that basically asserts that we would be eligible for that reimbursement at the end of the project. We expect to have a bond referendum. The committee voted the other night to propose to the council that it be held in November. That would give us plenty of time to get that letter back, to start pushing out good information on the project so everyone can be informed. We're not here to tell you to vote one way or another. All I ask is the building committee chair, and on behalf of the committee, the council, the school committee, that you keep an open mind and work with us through the process. If, in the end, if you decide this project is not for you, we understand. Hopefully you'll engage and feel a part of the process, and that's what we want. And that's why we're here today. So moving forward, we have a master schedule for the project. I urge you to go online, the school building committee website, which is off the town website. Log on, you can download it. It's an Excel format or it's a PDF format. It outlines all the upcoming meetings for the school building committee, the workshops, and it's going to be even more robust because we're going to start adding in where we're going to start selecting a new architect. No offense, Phil, he's been great, but for the next phase of this, we will be having another architect selection. We'll have to bring on a construction manager. We'll have to bring in an owner's project manager. There's a whole design team that'll support us through this process. So there's going to be a lot going on over the next few months. And that means the committee's going to be meeting quite a bit. So I urge you to stay engaged. All of our meetings are live streamed. So if you can't make a meeting, go on YouTube. We live stream these meetings. This one's being live streamed now and recorded. You can always go back. If you need to communicate with the committee, there's an email on our website. I urge you to just email us. That email gets put into a batch distribution that goes out to the committee, and the committee can respond. We're trying desperately to stay with communication in open format so everyone stays informed at the same time. To the point that all of my emails, or the majority of my emails that go out with updates, go to the school building committee, school committee, the town council, RIDE, and anybody else who's involved in the process. We're trying to keep that open communication line so everyone is on the same page. We talked the other night at the building committee meeting about ongoing messaging. Whatever's said to council really should be said to the school committee. I would urge you not to fall into the trap, and urge others not to fall into the trap of just taking information off of social media and assuming that is correct. As we already saw recently, there was some information distributed on the financials that kind of bounced around, and it created some confusion. And that's not our intent. Our intent is to create clear information that you can take to the bank. The only way to do that is to get it from the committee or reputable bodies, not somebody who just posts something randomly on a social media site. To that end, we've asked the school building committee not to post on behalf of the committee on any of this on Facebook. So if we don't engage in a question on Facebook, don't get offended. Ask the question through another means. And it allows us to, we're going to start building an FAQ that puts good information out because your questions are important. It's likely that others will have that same question and we want to respond appropriately. So what I ask is engage us and we will do the same back. And if for some reason you're not getting an answer, my information's on the site. You can always call me. I'd much rather receive a phone call from somebody who has a question or walks into my office and I can answer them frankly than seeing something swirling about and now we have to, re-engage the community to call that back. One comment can do a lot of damage. And in the end, this is about the students. We can never forget that. This project means a new high school. This means a new chart for the town. By disrupting the information flow and disrupting the project, ultimately, whether you agree or not, this would be a benefit to the students. And if you disagree, you'll have that opportunity at the ballot box. There's no doubt. But what we want is for you to be at least a purveyor of good information on the project. So I'll leave that there. Phil and Catherine have some great activities today. They'll run through them and then we'll distribute. We'll create some teams. We'll get some interactive stuff done. But today you'll be helping us design a new high school. That's what this session's all about. So without further ado, I'll pass it over to Phil.
I'll put the presentation on. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Who's ever here for the first time, would you mind raising your hand? I'm just curious if there's any new people here. Okay, quite a few of you, which is great. Because many of you have heard these messages before and participated in some activities. We certainly welcome all the newcomers. Hi. That's fine. That's fine. So the first couple slides, Luke pretty much delivered the message that was in there. So I may just go through some of them quickly so that we can get to the activity descriptions. So this one just mentioned the $125 million bond. Next slide. This just referenced the stage 2 that we're going to be submitting in June. Next slide. If you were looking in terms of schedule, upon a successful bond vote, construction could begin as early as spring of 2025, with completion by the summer of 2027. So I think it's important that you know this time frame of the students that will be impacted. When will the first class be coming through the new school, et cetera. Next slide. This is a breakdown of the $125 million. And again, you're here today to participate in an interactive session. This is not a sales pitch. Those images you see at the bottom, those are sales pitches. That's not what we're doing here today. Additionally, this is our first community workshop concerning the design of the building. We're going to be meeting with Chip and setting up a couple sessions with the students as well for some ideas that they may have. Okay, so we have 4 activities. Some of them you may or may not be participating in. It's up to you. But the first is, we have about 30 people here. About 30 people. There are 10 tables in the back. We want you to split up into groups, and you can certainly use all 10 of those tables And there's going to be in the yellow manila folder, programmatic colored blocks of the major spaces of a new high school. It'll have blocks for auditorium, blocks for gymnasium, blocks for classrooms, media center, etc. We're going to want you to lay them out on the plan that is set on that table, which identifies the area that Luke mentioned here at Hazard Field. And we want you to discuss amongst yourself what may be an important feature to the school. For example, if someone thinks the gymnasium is an important feature, maybe it should be located here, and the auditorium maybe should be located next to it. There is no right or wrong answer. We're interested in what you think is going to be important to the programmatic layout of the building. We're going to let you do that for about 20 minutes, 25 minutes, and then you should elect a person that can report out on the concept that you have developed as a group. Next slide. There's a couple hints. First, when you open up the manila folder, spread out the pieces so that you can understand what you have to work with. I can tell you this will be a multi-story building. That's why there are a series of plans on your table. I could tell you it will not be higher than 3 stories, all right? But you may elect to have no classrooms on the first floor and put all the classrooms on the second floor. You guys can do whatever you want to do to explain to us what you think is important to how a high school could lay out. You do want to reference the aerial view for context. There's an 11:17 aerial view on each table that lets you know where the Hazard building is relative to the site, where Columbia Avenue is, etc. Next. It's going to look something like this when you're done. So that's the first activity. Go ahead to the next one. So the second activity, after we report out on the building, we're going to give you another smaller package to do the athletic fields at Curtis Corner. That'll be a much simpler activity, but we think it's important for you to understand what the opportunities are at that site for the athletic fields. A hint, you will want to avoid wetlands that we've identified on the plan, and you'll start to see how that really limits the options. So that activity will be much shorter. Next. An activity we call our graffiti wall in the back corner of the room. There's some Post-it papers back there and some markers. If you have some comments, feel free to just write them down. Those comments may be programmatic related, building related, aesthetics related, systems related, green technology related, whatever you want to convey to us that you just want to write down. We'd appreciate any feedback we have. And the fourth activity is our gallery over here. So on that table next to Chip, there is a cardstock that has, it's 2-sided and it's 1 through 54. That's how many images are there. What I'd like you to do is take a card, go through the gallery, and if one of those buildings were to just be dropped on the site, would you find it appealing, not appealing, or have no opinion on how that architectural style and context would fit into what you imagine the new South Kingstown High School should represent for the community? So that is not our work. That is work from across the world, but they all represent, for the most part, high schools. And there's many different styles there. And we're interested in what South Kingstown thinks this high school should look like and represent the values that it has. So we're going to go ahead and get, I think one more slide. I think it just says, yeah, that's the card and the gallery. Yes. Okay, well, why don't you come on up? And then after Luke, we'll go ahead and get started with that first activity that we'll walk you through.
So just a couple of things, a reminder, make sure you sign in. There's a list for emails. We have coffee donuts. Please eat the donuts. I do not need to bring donuts home. I cannot eat them right now. So please take them off my hands. And then, what was the last thing I was gonna say? Oh, questions. At the end of this, you will have an opportunity to engage and I'll answer any questions you have in a group form. And we'll try to keep it brief, but I'll get you as many information answers as I can today. And like I said, I'll be walking around as well if you have additional questions. All right?
Thank you, Luke. Okay, so you're going to be making some new friends. So those 10 tables in the back, the round ones, I'd like you to stand up, make your way to the back, pick a table, and we will help you get started. And we're going to do this for about probably 25 to 30 minutes. Excuse me for 1 second. I just want to make sure you know that There are markers on the tables. Feel free to mark up that plan as you need to show where you think an entrance would be or additional parking or some other feature. Excuse me, everyone. I just want to mention it's almost 10 o'clock and we're going to run this activity till 10:15. So about 15 more minutes and then Okay, good morning, everyone. In about 10 minutes, we're going to be transitioning to the athletic field and Curtis Corner activity. Okay, in about 5 minutes, we're going to transition to the Curtis Corner athletic field activity. All right, folks, how about in about 10 minutes at 10:30, we will try to start an organized reporting out of what your group has come up with or any other comments or public forum discussion we want to have. So in about 10 minutes, we'll start reporting out. Okay, in about 5 minutes, we will start reporting out. All right, everyone. Here's what I'd like to do. You're all engaged in some good discussion and I appreciate it. I think what I'd like to do is I'll take this microphone around to each group that wants to report out. And that group can share some of their thoughts that they've had about the process, about the design. The reason why we want you to tape everything down and to write notes is so that we can take that back with us. It's not meant to show everybody necessarily. We're going to aggregate all of this. So I want to go from table to table and someone at that table can share their thoughts and comments. And then we'll take it from there. I want to make sure people get to do some of the other activities that are on the wall or in the gallery. So what table wants to go first? All right. There you go. All right. So who is the spokesperson? Okay. Tell us.
I thought I had to hold down. So we obviously thought very much about accessibility and parking. We tried to put things like the mechanical and food service areas behind the, it won't, we didn't tape it all down. It's not made for horizontal viewing, vertical viewing. So the auditorium, the gymnasium have access to parking. There's parking in the administration and nurse's office for picking up those kids that need to go home. We made it quite compact. We talked a lot about interior open space, the pros and cons of having green space in the center of the building. Thought that it had some good points to look at. And then we put our collaborative space interspersed with the classroom space. We only had a 2-story building, with the auditorium and the gymnasium being 2-story from the first floor. Really want accessibility and easier traffic patterns for the community to use both the gymnasium and the auditorium that are outside of the school day.
Great. Thank you very much. What table wants to go next? Was that okay? Come over here.
See if we can get this. Sorry. So much like the previous table, we were interested in putting in the center of the building a courtyard or some green space so that essentially everything is on the periphery of the lot as opposed to a monolithic thing in the middle of the lot. Oh, I'm sorry. That's better. And again, how do you make this accessible to cars, and where do you put the food services next to the parking lots and administration? So what we had done was grouped the larger spaces towards the back corner. So this is kind of would be adjacent where the senior parking lot is today. And the spaces that we thought would require deliveries would be back there too. The School Street would be more of the entrance area in terms of the kind of just the photo shoot of the entrance. We had administration on the bottom. We also limited it to 2 stories, and we put all of the classrooms and the kind of collaborative space in the media center on the 2nd floor. We do have the cafeteria on the 1st floor. One of the ideas was there to be able to open it up to the central space so that kids want to eat outside, they can eat outside. So that's what we did.
Great, thank you. Thank you very much. All right, who wants to go next? I will, there you go, we'll go down here.
I will say was not the easiest activity to do. I like that activity better where you get to look at the models. And those first two might have been better than ours, but here's what we did. Want to make sure we had access parking to the gymnasium auditorium in case it was an outside activity. But again, it's hard to visualize this without seeing the open space. And then we kind of put a courtyard in the middle like the last group. We wanted to have the administration office on School Street, so the visitors could come right in. That would be your first look as you come in, administration and nurse. And then we had a unit over here with music and auditorium kind of connected. And each group kind of has their own parking. I don't know if that's good or bad. Food services were lined up to easy access and a little bit of technology construction on the first floor. So then when you go to the second floor, it's mainly all classes and CTE rooms with a lot of collaboration spaces in between the groupings. So the purple's the collaboration spaces. Nothing on top of the gymnasium and auditorium, figuring that's going to be a little higher. And a nice open window section for this visual arts studio and media center, kind of above the administration or the offices. CTE has their own wing with science, and the rest of the core classes were in the middle with guidance in the back, but accessible to everybody.
Gotcha, thank you. Next table, who wants to go next?
We were talking about it as being somewhat of a campus-like setting, where you're sort of facing the hazard building in the bottom corner here, and having the gymnasium in the back corner up here facing the athletic field, and then having sort of the masses of the classrooms in the back corner over there, and then also having another entrance with parking on the School Street side, so and courtyards in the center, so sort of making it where they have to sort of you have more of your public uses in the front and corners, and then the kids have to sort of walk through areas and courtyards in order to get to the classrooms. So but sort of using a lot of the site and sort of pushing the building to the property line kind of and opening up the center more. So that's what we were thinking.
Great, thank you very much. All right, next, okay.
So I think ours was a little narrower and longer and taller. Oh, we lost our cafeteria. So we did a sort of a grand entrance. And then with the auditorium behind it and sort of the music space. Yeah, so that would be your entrance with like a grand 2-floor space there and a 2-floor space there. And then the gym's kind of in the middle. We did leave more of it open, so it's sort of long and skinny with a long hallway, and that way you get views on both sides. Nothing's in the middle particularly. We did put all the classrooms upstairs, and then we have a 3rd floor on one half of the buildings, so we can have the classrooms up and also on the outside of the building. And then we made kind of a science wing and an other classroom wing, and there's halls and yeah, but we left a lot more. It's more up and less out maybe than some of the other ones.
You made some notes.
Yes.
Thank you very much. All right, is there one last table? Oh, two more tables. We'll go here first. Go ahead, thank you.
Sure, thanks. So we're not all taped down here, and I don't think our group is really set on a specific layout, but like from a conceptual perspective, we keep talking about light. We want light everywhere for the students. There's a lot of ways you could do it wrong and have interior classrooms. We tried to figure, and I think we would want to defer to I think we want the architects to build an inspiring building that solves the things that need to be solved. Someone, I think, just called that a science wing. Like that might be how you should do it. I don't know. I don't think we know that. But I do think we tried to tuck the parking into the back and think about how does the facade of the building integrate into the neighborhood to make it, a nice view for the residents. And then how do we have, we're not maybe bent on a courtyard, especially if we look at a 3-story design and we question whether a 2-story design would be more cost effective or less cost effective. You got more foundation. So we're going to run into money constraints and space constraints. So how do we use the space effectively? Do we have varied rooftop heights, maybe 2 and 3 stories? Do we have rooftop gardens or courtyards up there to better use the space and do it in a cost effective way? How do we make the students and teachers able to go inside and outside, for collaboration, for lunch has been called out a few different times. Obviously we have traffic flow issues today. So how do we solve them effectively? And it's really hard without orienting some of the other objects on this map, I think, for us to do that effectively. What else am I missing here? Oh, solar panels. Like if we don't put solar panels on this, I don't know what we're doing correctly here. I mean, that seems like I don't know what kind of state subsidies are there, so maybe separate from what we're dealing with budget wise anyway, but that probably pays for itself pretty quickly in the long run. Am I missing anything here? Yeah, collaborative spaces visually. I'm sorry, you want to say it?
There was a concern about the collaborative spaces being kind of tucked into corners. So we were talking about having them very open to the adults and, the importance of collaborative spaces, but to have them visually accessible to the adults in the class in the building.
And you've got written down trees. So I hope we've got a little landscaping budget to make sure that there are trees and the space is nice. I mean, someone used Mr. Champion, I think, used the word campus like, or someone said that, I forget who, but yeah, like let's do it right if we're gonna do it. So.
Well, thank you very much. All right, last table.
All right, thank you. So my partner, I think, left and there was only 2 of us, so I'll just go ahead. Just kind of speak for us. The main things we were focusing on, and maybe the layout's not exactly the way we would want it in the final design, but conceptually, we're thinking the parking spaces being accessible for the auditorium and gymnasium, which are going to be potentially public activities going on there. Also having the parking for the green space, I thought was important. So it kind of bridges that gap between the two. And then, having all that stuff on the first floor makes sense with the auditorium, gymnasium, all that stuff on that side. We really wanted to have the south facing aspect of this, the side facing School Street, to have the classrooms and collaboration spaces. And if we built out the second floor, which we didn't, I was thinking the classrooms and collaboration spaces would sort of be on that south facing side that would catch the light and be nice, and then potentially have some open space around the building, and then maybe a little bit in the interior as well. And that's kind of where we're going with it.
Great, thank you. Does anybody want to comment on Curtis Corner and the athletic fields there? A number of you did the activity, so make sure you tape everything down so we can take it with us. But does anybody want to talk about that? Oh, I'm sorry. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry.
Ours is mostly just a big consolidation of space. I think we have it all kind of together instead of a campus idea. Just so you can, it's an opportunity to make a smaller building with more open space around it. That's just the general idea. Right.
Yeah, I think our approach was philosophical in the idea that to make it take advantage of School Street being there to have the parking up front. With an entrance here going to administration, I realize you're putting two-story structures right on the facade at School Street, but that doesn't mean you can't do something with windows or something to lighten those walls. So you're not looking at a two-story brick wall. And then another philosophical idea, I guess, was that rather than segregating science from other disciplines, is to have science integrated with languages or history or English or other things, so that and put collaborative spaces there as well, so that there's way for different disciplines to get together and not keep everything separate, a different way of learning. But yeah, in the end, I think philosophically, we want to take advantage of School Street, and we didn't want to build the entire plot with an idea that when you have good weather, you could have classes outdoors in a green space there, for instance. So philosophically, and I think if the idea was to teach us a lesson as to how hard it is to plan a building, you succeeded. So thank you.
Well, thank you. I do appreciate your efforts. You know, this is just the first workshop. I think it's important that everybody understands that, you know, this is a step in the process for RIDE approval. We are going to be developing by June a floor plan and a design for this building so that it can be estimated, so that the application can be made. But please keep in mind, that is not the final design, right? You still have to successfully pass a bond vote. You will bring on a design team, and you will be doing this again that at that time with an actual real approved, you know, project. So this enables us to start the process in the direction that you all wanted to go in. I do appreciate all your time. I want to make sure you get to participate in an activity over here at the gallery or in the graffiti wall, if you would like. If you could make sure everything is taped down, we would appreciate it. That will help us keep it safe. And Luke, maybe I'll turn it over to you.
So I agree. Thank you for participating. I think there's good feedback I received just walking around. If you have any questions, we do have some minutes left. So, you know, if anyone would like to grab the mic and ask a question, now's the time. If you're unclear on any of the project to date or whatnot, just raise your hand and I'm glad to pass off the mic for that question for the benefit of all. Anybody? Yep. Yep.
That was allocated in our gray squares. And so we have a total of 80 parking spaces in this one, and that's much less than what we currently have. Is that because we think it's not going to be needed, or?
So those 80 parking spaces blocks are really representational of what a 40 spot size is and a 20 spot size is. So if we thought we needed more, we could just keep plopping them out. So I would not focus too much on the parking at this point, because that's going to be part of a overall process and site planning effort.
And the important thing to realize, this is going to be an iterative process. So the building committee is going to be working with Phil, taking your input, which we'll be discussing at our next meeting, applying it and trying to force Phil to come up with some very different concepts. This is the way design works, right? What if the building had no parking in front and we want to keep School Street green, right? That might be one radical concept, and everything goes to the back. Another one might be distributed parking or drive aisles or whatever our goals are. So the idea is to come up with multiple options that we can select from and bounce off the community and come back and say, what do you think? Phil, can we get these slides online, those, so we could do an online survey?
We will, similar to a survey that we had maybe a year ago, I will go ahead and get those images in the gallery, and we can create a survey tool for that you could then share out to the community.
Anybody else have any questions? Just raise your hand. We good? All right, make sure that you sign out. If you want to share your email address, it'd be very helpful. The plan is to create a constant contact type. We won't bombard you, but I think it'd be nice on a regular basis, send out those updates so you have concise information that you can also share. So be on that list if you want to receive those. Thank you all and have a great Saturday.